Now we are outside of Lambeau Field. Wow. Welcome to the NFL Draft. It is Christmas for our next guest. He is from NFL Draft Bites. Chad Forbes joins us. Merry Christmas. Happy Draft Day, Chad. Thanks for
That's it.
rejoining us. Yes.
Last time we talked, it was Thomas Fidone and Ty Robinson, and I said they're going to go day 3. I'm here to report they're going to go a lot earlier than we expected, and both might go in round 2, Ty Robinson.
Whoa.
Wow. Chad.
All right. Hey, hold that. We'll circle back to that. But as the draft begins today and all the coverage over the next 3 days, what is your favorite cliches that will be used by talking heads talking about prospects or the draft on certain teams?
It's a quarterback-driven league, like we don't already know that. You're going to hear that. Right?
That's a good one.
I used to love when Mike Mayock would say fast guys run fast. Or the combine doesn't matter, and then the 4.29 corner goes like 30 picks earlier than you expected. Those are my favorite.
Hey, but when you deliver that fast guys run fast, if you deliver it the right way, people are like, "Oh yeah,
they're like football guys."
Yeah, Mayock is right. He should be a GM in the NFL.
That worked for him.
Chad, what do you think about premium positions? How do you feel about that cliche? That's my favorite one.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? And then you see teams draft like, a Jason Smith from Baylor 2nd overall, right? So it makes sense until the guy loses his job, right? That's the conversation with Ashton Genty. It's not a premium position, but just turn him on. He's a really good player.
All right, let's start with quarterbacks. The first one will be off the board with the first pick. And then things get kind of interesting with the love of Jackson Dart. But this draft will have a lot of discussion about Shedeur Sanders. At 6:39 Central, it's a 7 o'clock draft tonight. What's your gut? What's your sources? What do you think happens with Shedeur Sanders in this draft?
Right. Do the Browns panic and try to trade ahead of the Steelers at 20? To me, the idea that you're going to take Travis Hunter 2nd overall, why not pair him with Shedeur Sanders? I see the Browns trading up either to 18 with the Seahawks or 20 with the Broncos to get ahead of the Steelers. Shedeur is going to go night 1. Obviously, the discussion is going to be how far will he fall. And then Jackson Dart, I don't see it, but apparently the Saints do. So he probably goes somewhere 27 to 29 with a trade up from the Saints. And that's going to be the discussion all day for you guys out there in Green Bay.
Hey, so Chad, where do you I feel like every time when we enter a draft, there's a team sitting in a certain position with a certain need where if they just sit there, they're going to end up winning night 1 just because the draft gods have just tipped the dominoes in a way where it'll fall in their favor. Is there a team right now that you're looking at in the first round where you're like, man, they're just sitting in the perfect position to get their guy?
The Eagles, if they just stick and pick at 32, the entire media world is like, that Howie Rossman, he's a genius again, right? It doesn't matter who he takes. Someone's going to fall into his lap. A Malachi Starks or a James Pierce. It happens every year. The Jaguars are really fascinating at 5. There's really a lot of directions they could go. But Ashton Genty would be really interesting. I don't think they can go wrong there. They're going to get one of the premium players in the draft courtesy of the Patriots reaching on the left tackle, Will Campbell. And the third team that I look at and say, oh, we're going to walk away from night 1 and say they did a great job is the Buccaneers. The draft really sets up well for them with their needs, given that they need a pass rusher and an inside linebacker.
Did you say that the Patriots will reach for Will Campbell? So I'm guessing he is not your number 1 offensive tackle.
Yeah, it's in between him and Membu, and it really depends on what you need, right? And also scheme and how ready do you need the guy. The floor, I think, is pretty high year 1 on Will Campbell. He's going to be a good player. The problem is at 4, if you're taking an offensive tackle, you want to say, oh, that guy's going to be the next Trent Williams or something. Where with Will Campbell, you look at his ceiling and you say, oh, that's like a Taylor Decker or a Riley Reese. That's not exactly what you want to do at 4th overall in a draft.
See, I think we're talking a lot about the quarterbacks, right? But I think right now with this kind of development we've had with Jacksonville and their interest in taking a skill position player, the number one question that I have, and I think what should be the top story is, what the hell is going to happen to Mason Graham? Where do you think that Graham, after having him locked in the top 5 for quite a while, where do you think he's going to end up now?
Mason Graham didn't handle the process well, right? It was not even injury related. A lot of guys are like, oh, sorry, I can't work out because I've got this foot issue or whatever. And they try to hide the fact that they're not a great athlete. With Mason Graham, it was just like, I'm, going to go top 5. That's what his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, said. And then teams were like, okay, that's great. But let's see a workout and, kind of quantify your athletic ability. He's going to go somewhere between, 8 and 13. I could see apparently the 49ers prefer Walter Nolan to Mason Graham, which is kind of surprising. if the Raiders or somebody trades down, you could see that being a target. He'd also fit the Bears. But really, I think Jacksonville, what they're doing kind of there is they recognize that the teams that want to trade up are looking to get Ashton Genty, and they're hoping that the Bears give them kind of a Godfather offer.
Hey, you are somebody who not only does the first round mock and discusses the first round, but you go out all 7. Who are some teams, as you look at their current roster, now what they're going to add out of the draft, who has to have a good 3 days in Green Bay?
Well, if you don't have a good 3 days in Green Bay, you're probably going to get fired. But I look at the Seahawks, where they've accumulated all this extra capital. Sure, it stinks to lose a DK Metcalf, and he obviously got paid by the Steelers, but they've got tons of picks there. And the needs really align with them. Hopefully, they can get an offensive line addressed early with the North Dakota State kid, and then just start to hit needs as they go there. So all those picks, it's hard to come away from a draft. You're not saying you won, but part of that is they had to part with DK Metcalf. And the second team where I say, if they don't get this right, their window's going to start to close is the Buffalo Bills. They really need help on defense with defensive tackle, edge rusher, and corner.
4 years from now, what do you think we'll be saying about this running back class?
I don't think it's going to pan out as a lot of people expected. I think there's kind of a 6 guys at top, and I'm not a huge Caleb Johnson guy. Okay. But it's not like this group that's like transcendent. There's a lot of pass catchers and situational backs in the group.
So one of those, and we haven't had a running back taken first overall since Kajana Carter, but we had a nice year of running backs led by Barkley, and they got more love. Yeah. Genty's gotten a ton of love. He's going to be off the board pretty quick. But the other running back that has really, the attention has picked up as the draft process has begun. What's your thoughts on Hampton from North Carolina and where he might end up?
Big physical back. I still think he's going in the second round. And I think what you're saying about the running backs is really interesting because everybody's looking for the day 3 back. The way the Buccaneers or the Giants got Tyron Tracy or Bucky Irving with the Bucs. So, the third day, whether it's Bashawn Tootin or the SMU running back, those guys are certainly intriguing.
All right, let's talk about the Huskers. Last time you were on here, you did an incredible job talking about Fidone. You predicted him, I'm pretty sure, going in the 5th round of Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken. And then I think you had Ty Robinson more on the 3rd round side. Now that it's been about 2 months, where do we sit right now with the Huskers?
I think he's going to go in the 3rd round. And I look at that Philadelphia Eagles pick at 96. And what they're doing with Dallas Goedert, shopping him, they don't want to pay him. They can only pay so many guys in Philadelphia. I look at him as the 5th best tight end in the draft, and he's got really impressive measurables, a ton of length, and he's a really intriguing player. I think he wasn't utilized well in that offense at Nebraska.
And then Robinson, where do you see the D lineman going?
Teams love him. I said last time I was on with you guys, he's a little overage, meaning he's not like a 21 or 22-year-old prospect. He just killed the process in terms of really getting with teams and them getting to know him. And I think he's going to go in the 3rd round, and the latest he'll go is probably like 110th.
I like the 3rd round, and I like the Kansas City Chiefs selecting him in the 3rd round.
I also like the 49ers for him.
Well, man, we can fight over that. Just kidding. What do you think? So Kansas City drafts at 31. They need to protect Patrick Mahomes. They also need to find a complement to a 31-year-old Chris Jones. We know what Brett Veach does on this scenario of the draft when Kansas City needs something, where they go shopping. What do you think Kansas City does at 31? And what do you think are some of the other needs that Kansas City has to fill in?
So I'm not privy to medicals, okay? But Derek Harmon is apparently following the defensive tackle from Oregon due to some medicals. On my board, if you disregard the medicals, he's the 4th best player. He's better than Mason Graham. I think this guy's got all pro talent. If you're sitting there at 31st overall and he's available, sprint to the podium. Offensive tackle, they kind of hit that in free agency. There's some value there in the 2nd round. I really think it needs to be an impact defender. I thought part of the Super Bowl story was their defensive line was really average, and they missed on the defensive end a couple years ago. You're right. They need a running mate for Chris Jones. And if Derek Harmon's there, that's really intriguing to me.
All righty. I'm a big Bears fan, Chad. And if we're looking at their draft picks right now in the first 2 days, 10, then 39, then 41, I'll let you be Ryan Poles. Give me your ideal outcome for Chicago if they're going to walk away the winners of this draft.
The ideal outcome is somehow you trade up for Ashton Genty and held on to both those 2nd-round picks. But if you can't, I say you still go up for Ashton Genty. Everybody's talking about positional value and trade charts. Look, it's about winning games, and they rebuilt that offensive line. Go get Genty. It'll excite the fan base, take pressure off Caleb Williams. Omar Norman, lots of guys that I look at for round 2, and then the pass rushers, Landon Jackson from Arkansas,
Okay.
JT Tuilamosu, and then they can hit safety. But, I look at what they did for agency and say the needs aren't as egregious as they were in the past. Let's go get Genty and get that done.
Hey, everybody's fast forwarding to what happens at 5. But what's your thoughts on what Cam Ward looks like in Tennessee?
I think it's a great fit. And throughout the process, he was underrated. Everybody's saying, this isn't a great quarterback class. I don't think people really watch enough ACC football. He had a tremendous year. Sure, there's some questions with ball security. But this idea that, he's not a better prospect than a Michael Penix or J.J. McCarthy, to me, was crazy. If you just watch those Miami games, I think it was a no-brainer for the Titans. I mean, I love Abdul Carter. I'm not as high on Travis Hunter as everybody else is. That's another story. But, yeah, if you're sitting first overall, you can't pass on the quarterback. It makes all sense in the world.
Hey, so Trevor Penning, the offensive tackle out of New Orleans yesterday, he didn't get his 5th-year option picked up. So immediately a lot of talking heads thought that, hey, this means that the Saints are going to go tackle now at 9. Do you think that them not picking up Penning means that they're going to switch what we think they're going to do? Because for a while we thought it'd be D-line or edge.
Well, Trevor Penning is a bust, right? So you're not going to pick up that 5th-year option, whether you have need or not. I mean, that was kind of just like a crazy concept that somehow that indicates how they're going to draft.
Sure.
What I will do is I'll connect a couple dots for you, though.
Okay.
All right? Armand Membu and the Saints, okay? Membu was coached by Kirby Moore, the new coach, Kellen Moore's brother at Missouri. He fits that system perfectly. If he's there at 9, I think that's a great fit for the Saints. And then another fun fact, Trevor Penning's brother, Jared, is also a part of this draft class. Will probably be an undrafted free agent to the Vikings.
Okay.
Hey, we'll ask for our producer, Jimmy, is a diehard Cowboy fan. They have needs. They've been attached to some wide receivers. One of the wide receivers that has kind of bounced all over on how people think about him, whether you love him or you, Todd McShay, hate him. What's your thoughts on McMillan? And then also, what do you think Dallas does with their pick at 12?
McShay and I are on the same page. I don't love that prototype of wide receiver, this guy, contested catch guy.
Yeah.
Right? It only works so often. I'm a big Matthew Golden guy. I also like Luther Burden. At 12, I think that they should be looking to trade down to somebody that wants Kelvin Banks, right? We look at the tackle from Texas. The floor seems to be the Dolphins at 13. If a team has tackle need, whether it's like the Houston Texans that want to come up for Kelvin Banks, that would make a lot of sense. I would not take Ted McMillan there. And not enough discussion has been given to the idea that they could use an edge rusher. They went out in free agency and they signed that former Saints edge rusher. They don't have a defensive tackle on that roster that I like. So, I think maybe jump and trade down. But, the Cowboys are always fascinating come draft night. I think day 2 is really where they get interesting. If they go Trayvon Henderson or Alfred Collins, what's their direction?
Chad, as always, we appreciate it. Enjoy the night. Great stuff at NFL Draft Bites, where you can find
Are
Chad.
You guys out in Green Bay?
No. We'll go to the NFL Draft site when Nebraska has a first-round guy. But it's been now 14 years.
All right, guys.
Hey, thank
Enjoy.
you. Thank you. That's Chad Forbes.